Young man cares for elderly father and works hard to survive until a millionaire sees his situation and everything changes. Ethan Miller rushed with a tray balanced in one hand while the other held his phone. The call from the hospital couldn't wait. His father, old Frank, had suffered another episode, and the medications were out of stock again. "Mr. Ethan, this is the third time you've answered your phone during your shift," said the restaurant manager, crossing his arms as customers watched the scene. "We've already talked about this." Ethan slipped the phone into his pocket with trembling hands. This job was one of 3 he held to pay for his father's treatment. If he lost it, what would he do? "I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson. It's just that my dad—" Your dad. Always the same excuse," the manager interrupted. "Look, I understand your situation, but this is a high-end restaurant. Customers don't pay to see waiters on the phone." An elegant woman sitting alone at a nearby table observed the situation closely. Victoria Reynolds, owner of one of the largest tech companies in the United States, subtly raised an eyebrow as she sipped her wine. "You don't understand," Ethan insisted, lowering his voice. "He's having an episode. I need to check if—" "Enough!" The manager raised his voice. "I'm tired of your excuses. Gather your things and leave. You're fired." The news hit Ethan like a punch to the gut. It was the end of the month, bills were already overdue, and the imported medication his father needed cost nearly 2 minimum wages. What would he do now? "Please, Mr. Johnson, give me one more chance," he pleaded, feeling his pride slip away in the face of desperation. "The decision is final," the manager replied firmly. "Leave before I call security." "Excuse me." A firm, polite voice cut through the tension. Victoria Reynolds had stood up and was now walking toward the 2 men. Her impeccable white suit and poised demeanor commanded attention. "Sorry to intrude, but I couldn't help overhearing," she said, looking directly at the manager. "This young man just mentioned his father is having a medical emergency. Firing him now seems at the very least inhumane." The manager swallowed hard. He knew exactly who she was. "Mrs. Reynolds, it's an honor to have you here, but we have our policies." "I fully understand policies," she interrupted with a polite but firm smile. "And I also understand the value of a good employee who has the integrity to care for his family. How much does he owe you? 2 weeks' pay? A month? Name the amount, and I'll pay it now so he can keep his job." Ethan stared at the woman in disbelief. Why was a stranger stepping in for him? "Ma'am, I appreciate it, but I can't accept—" "I'm not offering charity, young man," Victoria replied, keeping her eyes on the manager. "I'm paying for the assurance that you'll serve me the next time I'm here. It's rare to find people with a sense of responsibility these days." The manager, cornered by the powerful businesswoman, backed down. "Well, if you insist, we can give Ethan another chance," he said, forcing a smile. "Ethan, get back to work and thank Mrs. Reynolds." Confused and embarrassed, Ethan nodded in gratitude and returned to his duties, feeling the woman's gaze follow him. Who was she? And why had she done that? What Ethan didn't know was that, in that moment, an invisible bond had begun to form, one that would forever change his family's fate. When he got home that night, the small apartment on the outskirts of New York City was quiet. His father slept under the influence of medication. On the nightstand lay an empty box of imported medicine and a crumpled receipt from the pharmacy. Somehow, old Frank had managed to get the medicine. Ethan went to the kitchen where Mrs. Jenkins, the neighbor who helped take care of his father while he worked, waited with a worried expression. "How did he get the medicine, Mrs. Jenkins?" Ethan asked, tossing his backpack onto the worn-out couch. The woman sighed. "Oh, my boy, he didn't want me to tell you, but he sold your grandfather's pocket watch, the one your mother left for you both." The young man felt the ground vanish beneath his feet. That pocket watch was the last keepsake they had of his mother, something his father had promised never to part with. "But why?" "I told him I'd figure something out. He saw you coming home late yesterday, your hands shaking from exhaustion. He said he couldn't bear to watch you work yourself to death for him anymore," the neighbor explained, her eyes brimming with tears. "He went to that pawn shop on Main Avenue. Mr. Murphy gave him a fair price, but you know it's worth so much more." Ethan sat down, defeated. That watch was more than an object. It was part of their family's history. His father always told the story of how Ethan's grandfather had received it as payment for a special job he'd done for a wealthy man from the countryside decades ago. "I'll get it back, Mrs. Jenkins. I don't know how, but I will." "I know you will, my boy. Now go rest. You start early at that market tomorrow, don't you?" Ethan nodded. Besides working at the restaurant at night, he stocked shelves at a supermarket in the morning, and on his days off, delivered for an app in the afternoons. Still, the money barely covered their basic expenses and his father's treatment. Lying. On his mattress on the living room floor, Ethan couldn't sleep. The image of that woman from the restaurant wouldn't leave his mind. Why had she helped him, and who was she really? The next day, Ethan arrived half an hour early for his shift at the supermarket. He needed to talk to the manager about overtime. As he organized the shelves, he caught a familiar silhouette in the glass reflection. It was her, the woman from the restaurant. Victoria Reynolds walked through the aisles of the ordinary supermarket on the outskirts, something completely out of place for someone of her social standing. She wore simple clothes, as if trying not to draw attention, but her elegant posture gave her away. Ethan pretended not to notice, continuing his work. Maybe it was a coincidence. New York City was big, but not that big. When his shift ended, heavy rain was falling. Ethan covered his head with a plastic bag and ran to the bus stop. That's when he saw a child losing balance on the slippery sidewalk, about to fall into an open storm drain, partially covered by rainwater. Without thinking twice, Ethan dropped his backpack and ran, grabbing the boy seconds before he fell. "Careful, kid," he exclaimed, lifting the frightened boy. "Where's your mum?" The child pointed to a woman running desperately toward them. "Thank God. Thank you." The mother hugged her son, trembling. "How can I thank you?" "No need, ma'am. Just keep him from running in the rain," Ethan replied, already stepping away so he wouldn't miss his bus. What he didn't see was Victoria Reynolds watching the scene from inside her car, parked across the street. She made a discreet gesture, and her driver started the engine, following Ethan at a distance. 3 days passed. Ethan was exhausted after another double shift. His phone rang. It was the hospital. His father had taken a turn for the worse and was admitted. With no money for a cab, he ran to catch the bus that would drop him near the public hospital. As he stepped off the bus, he saw a luxury car parked in front of the hospital. The door opened and Victoria Reynolds stepped out, walking straight toward him. "Ethan Miller?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "Yes," he replied, confused. "How do you know my full name?" "We need to talk," she said, ignoring the question. "Your father is stable. I checked personally. The best doctors are taking care of him now." What do you mean? You can't just—" "Actually, I can," she interrupted, "and I already have. Now, I have a proposal for you, one that could change both of your lives. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. Ethan took 2 steps back, suspicious. "Why are you doing this? You don't even know me." "Let's just say I have my reasons," Victoria replied with a look Ethan couldn't decipher. "Come, let's talk somewhere more appropriate. I'm not going anywhere until I see my father." Victoria nodded. "Fair enough. Go see him. I'll be waiting in the hospital cafeteria." Ethan rushed to his father's room. To his surprise, old Frank was in a private room with state-of-the-art equipment and a team of attentive doctors. He'd never received treatment like this in the public system. "Son," the old man murmured when he saw him. "What's going on?" "These doctors suddenly showed up, brought me to this room." "Dad, I don't really understand either," Ethan admitted, holding his father's hand. "It seems like someone's helping us." "Who would do that for us, son? We have no one." Ethan hesitated. "A woman. A businesswoman I met at the restaurant." The old man frowned, trying to remember something. "What's her name?" "Victoria Reynolds." His father's face paled. His eyes widened and he gripped Ethan's hand with surprising strength. "Reynolds, Victoria Reynolds," he repeated, agitated. "No, son, don't get involved with that woman. Something's not right." "Dad, calm down. What's wrong? Do you know her?" Old Frank closed his eyes as if the memory was too painful. Some things from the past are better left buried, my son. Before Ethan could press further, a nurse came in to check the patient's vitals. Your father needs to rest. Now, she said kindly. The doctor will be by soon to discuss the new treatment with you. New treatment? What treatment? The experimental one with the imported medication. Mrs. Reynolds has already authorized everything. Ethan left the room in a daze. In the cafeteria, Victoria was waiting with 2 cups of coffee on the table. Your father seems shaken by my presence, she remarked as Ethan sat down. Did you talk about me? How do you know? Did you have someone spying on us? Victoria smiled faintly. Don't underestimate my resources, Ethan. I know more about you and your father than you think. And why this sudden interest? He asked, growing more suspicious. I have a proposal for you, she said bluntly. I need a personal assistant, someone trustworthy, discreet, and hardworking. I've watched you for days. I've seen how you juggle 3 jobs, how you care for your father, how you ignored your own well-being to save that child in the sewer. You're exactly the kind of person I'm looking for. So you followed me. That's an invasion of privacy. I prefer to call it field research, she replied, unshaken. The salary will be 3 times what you make from all 3 jobs combined. You'll have a room in my home, all meals included, and your father will receive the best medical care available. All I ask for is absolute discretion and loyalty. Ethan was stunned. The offer was too tempting to be true. Why me? There must be thousands of more qualified people. Technical skills can be taught. Character can't, Victoria cut in. Besides, you have experience in multiple areas, you're adaptable, and most importantly, you have something to lose. That will make you dedicated. That sounds like blackmail. Call it what you want. I'm offering a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Think about your father. About the treatment he needs. Ethan stood up. I need time to think. You have until tomorrow, replied Victoria, handing him a card. My driver will be at the hospital gate at 10 a.m. If you decide to accept, be there. That night, Ethan didn't sleep. Victoria's offer echoed in his mind, along with his father's. Alarmed reaction. What was between them? Why did his father seem so frightened? In the morning, he spoke again with old Frank, who was visibly better. The doctors say this new medication is revolutionary, son, the old man commented with more color in his face. I haven't felt this good in years. That's great, Dad, Ethan replied hesitantly. About that woman, Victoria Reynolds. She offered me a job as her personal assistant. Old Frank closed his eyes for a moment. And will you accept? I don't know, the pay is very good and she promised to continue your treatment, but your reaction yesterday worried me. What's between the 2 of you? The old man sighed deeply. There are things a father prefers not to. Tell his son to protect him, Ethan. But maybe it's time you learned some truths. Old Frank then revealed that decades ago, he had worked as a gardener at the Reynolds mansion, when Victoria was just the spoiled daughter of the company owner. At the time, Frank was married to Rachel, Ethan's mother, a beautiful and kind woman who worked as a maid in the same house. The Reynolds family has always been powerful, son, and power in the wrong hands can destroy lives. Ethan listened carefully, sensing he would finally understand the mystery behind Victoria's interest. What happened, Dad? Rachel, your mother. She knew things she shouldn't have. Things about the family's business, and when she tried to do what she thought was right, his father's voice faltered, his eyes filled with tears. They destroyed us, son. We lost everything. Your mother was so shaken that she fell gravely ill. The rest you already know. Ethan vaguely remembered his mother in the hospital, wasting away day after day, until one day she didn't wake up. He was only 7 at the time. Are you saying the Reynolds family was responsible for my mother's illness? Not directly, son, but the pressure, the threats, the way they treated us, all of it contributed to her losing the will to live. Ethan felt a rising anger. And now the daughter of that family wants to hire me? Why, remorse? I don't know, my son, but be careful. The Reynolds always have hidden motives for everything they do. When Ethan left the hospital, his mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. At the gate, promptly at 10 a.m., stood Victoria's driver with a luxury car. He hesitated. Accepting the job would mean working for the family that, according to his father, had contributed to the ruin and sorrow that marked his childhood. On the other hand, it was the chance to secure the treatment that would save his father's life. Taking a deep breath, Ethan got into the car. The Reynolds mansion was in an upscale neighborhood of New York City. Surrounded by high walls and an elaborate security system, the property seemed like a world apart, far removed from the reality of the outskirts where Ethan had grown up. As he entered through the massive gate, he immediately felt out of place. The impeccable gardens, the marble fountain, the imposing architecture, everything screamed wealth and power. Ethan thought of his father, working as a gardener in that same place decades ago. The driver led him to the main entrance, where a middle-aged woman with a stern expression awaited him. "You must be the new assistant," she said, looking him up and down with evident disapproval. "I'm Martha, the housekeeper. Mrs. Reynolds asked me to show you your room and explain your duties." Ethan followed the housekeeper through the mansion's luxurious hallways. Each room displayed works of art, designer furniture, and objects that seemed to cost more than everything he owned. "Here's your room," announced Martha, opening a door at the end of a hallway. "It's usually reserved for trusted staff. Mrs. Reynolds insisted you stay in the main house, not the service area." The room was simple compared to the rest of the house, but still far more luxurious than anywhere Ethan had ever slept. A comfortable bed, a private bathroom, a small desk, and a wardrobe. "Your clothes are already in the closet," Martha continued. "Mrs. Reynolds arranged a proper uniform for when you accompany her to official engagements." "What do you mean, she already arranged clothes?" Ethan asked, confused. "She didn't even know if I'd accept the job." The housekeeper gave a knowing smile. "Mrs. Reynolds always gets what she wants, young man. Remember that." After leaving his small backpack in the room, Ethan was led to Victoria's office. On the way, they passed the kitchen, where a young woman with dark hair was organizing some papers at a table. She looked up as they entered, and Ethan felt a jolt of recognition. "Jessica." The young woman's eyes widened. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" Martha glanced between them curiously. "You know each other." "We went to school together," Jessica replied quickly, turning her attention back to the papers. "A long time ago." What Jessica didn't say was that they had been more than classmates. For nearly 2 years they had dated in high school, until she suddenly ended things and vanished from his life. Ethan had never really understood why. "Miss Jessica is Mrs. Reynolds's personal secretary," Martha explained, "and it seems you'll now be the assistant. What an interesting coincidence." Her tone made it clear she didn't believe in coincidences. In the elegant office, Victoria waited behind a grand desk, dressed in a flawless pantsuit, typing rapidly on her laptop. "Ah, Ethan, come in," she said without looking up. "I assume Martha's shown you your room and explained the basic house rules." "Yes, ma'am." "Good. First important rule. Inside these walls, just call me Victoria. Ma'am makes me feel even older than I am." She finally looked up, studying him with interest. "I see you've met Jessica. Another interesting coincidence, don't you think?" Ethan grew more suspicious. Victoria, I don't believe in so many coincidences. You knew we knew each other, didn't you?" Victoria smiled enigmatically. "Perhaps. Now, about your duties. You'll be my eyes and ears. You'll attend meetings, take notes, organize my schedule, do research. Basically, you'll always stay one step ahead, anticipating my needs." "I have no experience with any of that," Ethan admitted. "You're smart and a fast learner. Jessica will teach you the rest. You'll work together on most tasks." Ethan's stomach tightened. Working daily with his ex-girlfriend who had broken his heart years ago wasn't part of the plan. "What about my father?" he asked, trying to focus on what really mattered. "Your father will continue receiving the best care. Dr. Thompson, a specialist in his condition, is already handling his case, and you'll have time off to visit him at the hospital. And when he's discharged," Victoria hesitated briefly, "we have a small cottage on the property. It was used by the old gardener. Your father can stay there with nurses available around the clock." Ethan narrowed his eyes. "The old gardener. You know my father worked here, don't you?" "As I said, I know many things about you and your family, Ethan, Victoria replied smoothly. Is that going to be a problem? That depends on your motives. My reasons are my own. What matters are the results. Your father will get the treatment he needs, and you'll have a job that pays far more than you ever could have gotten otherwise. At that moment, Jessica walked into the office with a folder. The documents for tonight's business dinner, Victoria, she said, avoiding Ethan's gaze. Thank you, Jessica. You already know Ethan will be our new colleague, right? You'll have plenty of time to reminisce about old times. Jessica nodded without enthusiasm and quickly left. She doesn't seem too happy about me being hired, Ethan observed. Jessica is extremely efficient but also very territorial. Give her time. Now dress appropriately. We have an important dinner tonight and I want you to join me. Tonight? But I don't even know what to do at a business dinner. Just observe, learn, and stay close to me. Consider it your baptism. Semi-fire. That evening, wearing a suit he found in the closet, which fit him perfectly, deepening his suspicions, Ethan accompanied Victoria to one of the city's most exclusive restaurants. The event brought together prominent business people, influential politicians and celebrities, a world completely foreign to him. Remember, speak little, observe much, Victoria instructed as they entered. These people smile while stabbing each other in the back. Ethan nodded, trying to steady his nerves. At the table, he was introduced as Victoria's executive assistant, a far grander title than he'd expected. Throughout the dinner, the young man carefully watched the power dynamics, the coded conversations, and the forced smiles. At one point, the discussion turned to a controversial tech expansion project. The problem is we'd need a completely new approach to bypass regulatory hurdles, one of the business people remarked. Environmental permits are getting harder to secure. Maybe because the project actually harms the environment, Ethan muttered, more to himself. To his horror, everyone at the table heard, and an awkward silence fell. Victoria shot him a piercing, "Look, sorry, I shouldn't have spoken," Ethan rushed to say. To his surprise, Victoria smiled. Actually, Ethan raises a valid point. What if, instead of trying to bypass regulations, we redesigned the project to comply with them from the start? It'd be faster and more economically viable in the long run. The conversation quickly shifted, with several business people considering this new approach. By the end of the night, a preliminary agreement had been drafted, a solution that balanced both economic interests and environmental concerns. In the car on the way back, Victoria was in an unexpectedly good mood. "You have a knack for business, Ethan. Your observation completely changed the direction of the discussion." It was an impulsive remark. "I thought you'd fire me on the key spot." "Fire you? Quite the opposite. You saw an approach no one else had considered precisely because you're not stuck in their usual way of thinking. That's valuable." When they arrived at the mansion, Victoria took a phone call and asked Ethan to wait in the office. Alone in the room, he couldn't help but notice a folder with his name on the desk. His instincts told him not to look, but curiosity won. Inside, he found detailed records of his life, school history, past jobs, medical records, and, to his shock, a full investigation into his father's illness, including possible experimental treatments. "Find anything interesting?" Jessica's voice startled him. She stood in the doorway, watching him with an unreadable expression. "Jessica, I was just snooping," she finished, stepping in and closing the door. "I don't blame you. I'd do the same." "What is all this? Why does she have a complete dossier on me and my father?" Jessica hesitated, as if weighing her words. "Victoria doesn't do anything without a meticulous plan, Ethan. She watched you for weeks before approaching you at the restaurant. Studied your habits, your routine, everything about you." "But why?" "That I can't say, but if you're here, it's because you're part of something bigger." Ethan felt a shiver run down his spine. "You broke up with me abruptly in high school. Was it because of her? Were you already working for Victoria back then?" Jessica looked away. "Things are complicated, Ethan. Not everything is as it seems. All I can say is, be careful. Victoria may seem cold and calculating, but there's more to her than meets the eye." Before they could continue, the door opened and Victoria walked in, eyeing them with interest. "Am I interrupting something?" I was just explaining to Ethan how we organize the files, Jessica replied quickly. Of course, Victoria smiled, clearly unconvinced. Ethan, I have good news. Your father is responding exceptionally well to treatment. The doctors believe he'll be able to come to the cottage in a week. The news should have made Ethan happy, but it only deepened his suspicion. How was his father's illness, which had tormented him for years, being treated so easily now? That's wonderful, he replied, trying to sound grateful. Can I visit him tomorrow? Of course, my driver will take you. Now go rest. Tomorrow will be a long day. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. In the following weeks, Ethan immersed himself in his new life. He quickly learned the complexities of the corporate world, surprising everyone with his adaptability. His father was moved to the cottage on the estate, where he seemed to grow stronger each day thanks to the specialized treatment. Yet unanswered questions still haunted him. Why had Victoria chosen him? What was the real connection to his father? And why did he sometimes catch the businesswoman watching him with an almost maternal expression? One afternoon, while organizing documents in the office, Ethan found an old photograph hidden in a book. In it, a much younger Victoria smiled beside a woman he recognized immediately, his mother. The shock was so great he dropped the photo. The two didn't look like employer and employee, but like close friends, embracing as if sharing a secret. She never told you, did she? The voice came from the doorway. It was Blake, Victoria's nephew, a man in his 30s who had never hidden his disdain for Ethan. What are you talking about? Blake stepped in, picking up the photo with a sly smile. About your mother and my aunt. They were more than acquaintances. Much more. My mother worked here as a maid, Ethan replied, trying to stay calm. Is that what they told you? Blake laughed. Interesting. Ask yourself, why would my aunt, one of the most powerful women in the United States, be so interested in the son of a former maid? Why would she invest a fortune in your father's treatment? Why bring him into the main house when even I, her own flesh and blood, don't have that privilege? Blake's insinuations planted an even deeper seed of doubt in Ethan. That night, he couldn't sleep, turning over every clue, cryptic remark, and coincidence since Victoria had entered his life. The next morning, he decided to confront his father. He found him in the cottage garden, stronger and healthier than he'd seen him in years. Dad, I need you to tell me the truth, Ethan began, showing the photograph he'd taken from the office. Who was my mother to the Reynolds family? And who is Victoria really to us? Old Frank paled at the sight of the photo. Where did you find this? In Victoria's office. Dad, I'm tired of half-truths. What's really going on? Why did she bring us here? The old man sighed deeply, as if finally surrendering to a weight he'd carried for decades. Sit down, son. It's time you knew everything. Old Frank then told a story very different from the one Ethan knew. His mother, Rachel, wasn't just a maid, but Victoria's childhood best friend. They'd grown up together in a small countryside town, daughters from families with very different social standings. When Victoria's father decided to move to New York City to expand the business, he brought your mother along, offering her a job and education. The two were inseparable. But then, why did you tell me she was a maid? Because that's how it ended, his father replied bitterly. Your mother and Victoria had a dream, to create a foundation to help underprivileged children. Rachel discovered documents showing Victoria's father was embezzling money meant for social projects. Old Frank explained that when Rachel confronted the powerful businessman, she was fired and accused of theft. Victoria, young and dependent on her father at the time, couldn't bring herself to defend her. Your mother was devastated by her friend's betrayal. That's when we met. I worked as a gardener at the house and witnessed everything. I helped her start over, we fell in love, and soon you came into the world. And Mom got sick because of that betrayal? Not exactly. Years later, when you were 6, Victoria came to us. Her father had passed away, and she'd taken over the business. She wanted to reconcile with Rachel, admit her mistake, make amends. But your mother refused to see her. The stress of that situation triggered the illness that had been lying dormant. Ethan tried to process all this information. So Victoria brought me here out of guilt, to make up for what she did to my mother. Maybe, or maybe there's more. Your mother never told me everything about her past with Victoria. There were secrets she took with her. At that moment, a disturbing thought crossed Ethan's mind. What if Victoria was more than just his mother's old friend? What if Blake's insinuating comments had some truth to them? Determined to uncover the full truth, Ethan decided to dig deeper. With Jessica's help, who seemed more like an ally by the day, he began researching old company files and personal documents he could discreetly access. One evening, after a particularly successful business dinner where Ethan had impressed important investors, Victoria called him for a private conversation in her office. "You've exceeded all my expectations, Ethan," she said, pouring 2 glasses of wine. "In just 2 months, you've learned what many can't in years. You have a natural talent for business." "Thank you," he replied, accepting the drink. "But I still have much to learn. Modesty is a rare virtue these days. Your mother was the same way." Ethan saw his opportunity. "You mention her often, but always vaguely. You two were very close, weren't you?" Victoria stared at her drink for a long moment. "Rachel was the best person I've ever known. We were like sisters. I loved her deeply." "Then why did you betray her when she needed you most?" The direct question caught Victoria off guard. Her eyes widened briefly before she regained composure. "Your father finally told you everything, didn't he?" she asked with a sigh. "Yes, I made the worst mistake of my life that day. I was young, cowardly, and completely dependent on my father. When he threatened to disown me if I supported Rachel, I chose money and power over loyalty, a decision that haunts me to this day. Is that why I'm here? To ease your conscience?" Victoria looked at him intensely. "Partly. But there's more, Ethan. Much more." Before she could elaborate, they were interrupted by Blake, who entered without knocking. Clearly affected by alcohol, Victoria's nephew glared at Ethan with hostility. "So now the maid's son is everyone's favorite," he taunted, flopping into an armchair. "The investors won't stop talking about the brilliant young man you discovered, Aunt. Meanwhile, I, your own flesh and blood, am treated like I'm useless." "Blake, this isn't the time," Victoria replied coldly, "and you know very well why the investors don't trust you. Your wild parties, your failed ventures, your irresponsibility. Oh, of course, and this guy who came out of nowhere is the picture of virtue." Blake staggered to his feet, pointing a finger at Ethan. "He has no idea what you really want from him. Why don't you tell him the truth? Or are you afraid he'll run away like his mother did?" "Enough!" Victoria's voice echoed through the office. "Get out now, Blake. I'm tired of your drama." The nephew shot Ethan one last contemptuous look before leaving, slamming the door behind him. A heavy silence fell over the room. Victoria suddenly looked exhausted, older than her years. "I'm sorry about that," she finally said. "Blake has always been troubled. He lost his parents too young, and my brother spoiled him into moral ruin." "What did he mean?" Ethan pressed. "What's this truth I should know?" Victoria hesitated, clearly torn. "It's not the time yet, Ethan. There are preparations to be made, documents to organize. Soon, I promise, you'll know everything." In the following days, Ethan noticed a subtle shift in Victoria's behavior. She began including him in more strategic company decisions, introducing him to important contacts and teaching him details about the history and workings of the empire she'd built. One afternoon, while reviewing contracts, Ethan spotted an open document on Victoria's laptop. It looked like a will. She quickly closed the screen when she noticed his gaze. That same evening, when visiting his father at the cottage, he found old Frank chatting animatedly with Victoria. The two seemed to be reminiscing, laughing like old friends. But when they noticed Ethan's presence, they abruptly fell silent. "What's going on here?" Ethan asked, confused by their sudden familiarity. "Just reminiscing about old times," Victoria replied, standing up. "Your father was telling me about when you were little and insisted on fixing everything in the house, even when you had no idea how." "Always been determined," old Frank added with an affectionate smile. "Just like your mother." "And like Victoria," the old man added, exchanging a meaningful look with the businesswoman. Stubborn, all of you. The way his father included Victoria in that all of you didn't escape Ethan. The tension in the air was palpable. "I should go," Victoria said suddenly. "I have a video conference in 10 minutes. Ethan, tomorrow I want you to join me on a visit to our factory in the countryside. It'll be a good learning opportunity." After she left, Ethan confronted his father. "What was that? Since when are you two friends?" Old Frank sighed. "Things aren't that simple, son. Resentment is a luxury for those with time to spare. At my age, with fragile health, I've learned to value forgiveness. Forgiveness after everything she did to our family. We all make mistakes, Ethan, some bigger than others. What matters is how we try to make amends." The next day, during the long drive to the factory, Victoria showed Ethan a more personal side. She spoke about her childhood, her friendship with Rachel, the dreams they'd shared. "Your mother was the most principled person I knew," she said, gazing out the window at the rural landscape. "When I betrayed her trust, I lost a part of myself." "Why did you wait so long to reach out to us?" Ethan asked. "If the regret was sincere—" "Fear," admitted Victoria. "Fear of being rejected like I was when I finally found the courage years later. And then, well, life happened. Marriages, divorces, the company growing, responsibilities piling up. But I never forgot Rachel or you." "What do you mean, me? You didn't even know me." Victoria seemed to choose her words carefully. "I knew you when you were a baby, Ethan. Your mother and I were still close back then. Later I followed your life from a distance through people I hired to keep me informed. That's disturbing. Why would you do that?" Before she could answer, the driver announced they had arrived at the factory. The intensely personal conversation gave way to technical explanations about the plant's operations, leaving Ethan frustrated with more unanswered questions. During the factory tour, however, Ethan impressed once again. He pointed out inefficiencies in the production process and suggested modifications that could save significant resources. The more experienced engineers were amazed by the young man's insight, despite his lack of formal training. "It's like you were born for this," Victoria remarked on the way back. "You have a business instinct just like my father. And me." Ethan couldn't help but notice a hint of pride in her voice, as if she was speaking of a family legacy. The comparison unsettled him. When they returned to the mansion, they found a tense situation. Blake was in the main hall, shouting at Jessica and Martha, clearly drunk. "Where's my dear aunt?" he bellowed upon seeing Victoria. "Oh, and you brought the protégé, the new heir to the Reynolds empire." "Blake, you're drunk. Go home," Victoria ordered firmly. "Home? This is my home, or at least—" "It should be," he staggered toward Ethan. "You know what she's doing, don't you? Preparing you to take over everything. The company, the fortune, the legacy. All of it, which should have been mine." "What is he talking about?" Ethan asked, looking at Victoria. "This isn't how I wanted you to find out," she replied, shooting a furious glance at her nephew. "Martha, please call security." "No," Blake yelled, grabbing Ethan's arm. "He needs to know the truth. Tell him why you're so obsessed with this kid. Tell him who his father is." The world seemed to freeze. Ethan felt as if the air had been sucked from his lungs. What did you say?" "Blake, that's enough." Victoria's voice trembled with anger and fear. "Your father isn't Frank," Blake continued with a malicious grin. "Your father was my uncle, her father. Richard Reynolds had an affair with your mother, and when she got pregnant, he fired her and denied everything. Victoria knew and did nothing. Now, eaten up by guilt, she wants to give you what's rightfully mine." Ethan looked at Victoria, waiting for a vehement denial. Instead, he saw tears in the eyes of the usually composed woman. Is this true?" he whispered. "Not exactly as he put it," Victoria replied, her voice barely audible. "It's more complicated." The implicit confirmation hit like a physical blow. Ethan felt the ground disappear beneath his feet. His entire life, his entire identity seemed to crumble in an instant. "Old Frank knows about this?" "Yes," Victoria admitted. "He's always known. He raised you as his son, even knowing the truth, because he loved your mother unconditionally." Ethan stepped back, feeling betrayed by everyone around him. "Is that why you brought me here? Because I'm your father's son, a Reynolds?" "Partly," Victoria answered. But not in the way Blake is implying. It's not out of guilt or some calculated plan. It's because you're family, Ethan. You always have been. I need to get out of here, he said, moving toward the door. I need to think. Ethan, wait, Victoria called. But it was too late. Ethan had already left, running across the property, his mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. He automatically headed to the cottage, needing to confront the man he had believed to be his biological father his entire life. Old Frank was sitting on the porch, as if waiting for him. Seeing his son's devastated expression, the elderly man immediately knew what had happened. "So you found out," he said simply. "Why did you never tell me?" Ethan's voice was a hoarse whisper. "Why did you live this lie?" "It wasn't a lie, son. Being a father isn't just about blood. It's about who's there, who loves, who protects. And I've always loved you as my own." Tears streamed down Ethan's face. "Then who am I? A Reynolds? A Miller? I don't even know anymore." "You're Rachel's son," old Frank replied, gently. "And mine too in my heart. Blood is just a detail." "How did it happen?" Ethan asked, slowly sitting beside the man who had raised him. "The truth, please. No more lies or half-truths." Old Frank then told the full story. Rachel, best friend to Victoria, had caught the attention of the powerful Richard Reynolds. For months, he courted her, promising to leave his wife and help her achieve her dreams. When she became pregnant, he showed his true colors. He offered money for an abortion, and when she refused, fired her and threatened to ruin her reputation if she spoke a word. Victoria found out what her father had done, but she was torn between family loyalty and friendship. In the end, she didn't take sides, something she deeply regretted later. "And you? Where do you fit into this story?" "I already loved your mother in secret, working as a gardener at the Reynolds mansion," the old man confessed. "When it all happened, I offered my support without asking for anything in return. Over time, we truly fell in love. When you were born, I decided to raise you as my own because in my heart you already were. And my mother, why did she never tell me? She wanted to protect you. Richard Reynolds was a powerful, vengeful man. If he knew you were growing up as the son of a simple gardener, he might have tried to take you from us or worse. Besides, to Rachel, you were the son of the man she loved. Me." Ethan wiped his tears, trying to process everything. "And Victoria, why did she reach out to me now?" "Richard passed away 8 years ago. Victoria took over everything and has been trying to help us discreetly ever since. When your mother left us, Victoria tried to get closer, but I was still too bitter. It wasn't until my illness worsened, and I saw you working yourself to the bone to help me, that I finally accepted her help. The most important revelation, however, was yet to come." Old Frank took a deep breath before continuing. "There's something else you need to know. Something even Victoria doesn't fully understand. Something your mother made me promise to reveal only if absolutely necessary. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing, what could possibly be more shocking? Ethan asked, emotionally drained. Richard Reynolds is not your biological father. The statement hit Ethan like lightning. What do you mean? But you just said, what everyone believes is that Richard is your father. That's what your mother let them think. The truth is more complicated. Old Frank explained that at the time, Rachel had discovered incriminating documents about embezzlement in the Reynolds business. When she confronted Richard, he threatened her. To protect herself and Victoria, who was being manipulated by her father, Rachel fabricated the pregnancy as blackmail. But I exist, Ethan said, confused. If it wasn't a real pregnancy, your mother found out she was truly pregnant shortly after, but not with Richard's child, with another man's. Who? Old Frank averted his gaze, as if the truth were too painful to say directly. A man she secretly loved, someone close to the Reynolds family. A sudden understanding hit Ethan like a wave. You? You're my biological father? The elderly man nodded slowly, tears in his eyes. I've always been your father, Ethan, in every way. But why the lie? Why let everyone, including Victoria, believe I was Richard's son? Protection. Richard was a dangerous man. If he'd known he was being deceived, he could have done something terrible to all of us. And later, when he died, the lie had been in place so long that Victoria automatically assumed you were her half-brother. Ethan tried to process this new twist in his identity. So, I'm not a Reynolds. Not by blood, but Victoria sees you as family regardless. She loved your mother like a sister, and you as, well, as the nephew she never had. At that moment, they heard footsteps at the cabin entrance. It was Victoria, her expression worried and her eyes red from crying. "Ethan, please," she began, but stopped when she saw old Frank. "Have you two talked?" "Yes," the old man replied. "I told him everything." Victoria seemed confused for a moment, until understanding dawned on her face. You're not my father's son." "No," Ethan confirmed. "I'm the son of the man who raised me, in every way." A mix of emotions crossed Victoria's face: surprise, confusion, and surprisingly relief. "Why did no one ever tell me?" "Your mother thought it best. The truth died with her," old Frank explained. "She only allowed me to tell if it was absolutely necessary for Ethan's well-being." "And why are you telling him now?" Victoria asked. "Because both of you need to move forward without ghosts from the past or mistaken identities. Ethan needs to know exactly who he is to decide his path." A heavy silence fell over the three of them, each absorbing the revelations in their own way. "Does this change your plans?" Ethan finally asked Victoria. "Now that you know I'm not your half-brother?" Victoria sat down slowly, her gaze distant, for a moment. "My plans were never based solely on blood ties, Ethan. It's true that believing you were my father's son, I felt a special responsibility. But what I saw in you, your integrity, your intelligence, your dedication, that has nothing to do with who your biological father is. Then why bring me into your home? Why train me, introduce me to your world?" Victoria took a deep breath. "Because I saw something in you I didn't even see in Blake, who is truly my nephew. I saw the potential to carry on what I've built, not just as a business, but as a force for good. The Reynolds Company has a legacy tainted by my father. I want to transform it, redeem it. And you, with your unique perspective, having grown up far from the corrupting influence of money and power, are the perfect person to help me." "What if I don't want to?" Ethan challenged. "What if all these revelations make me want to walk away from all of it?" "Then I'll respect your decision," Victoria answered without hesitation. "Your father will continue receiving the best care. You'll be given generous compensation for your time, and we'll go our separate ways. The choice is entirely yours." Ethan looked at old Frank, who squeezed his hand in silent support. "I need time to think, to find myself in this new map of who I am." "Take all the time you need," Victoria assured him, standing. "But know that to me you are family, regardless of blood." In the days that followed, Ethan immersed himself in a journey of self-discovery. He asked for a few days away, which Victoria readily granted. He visited significant places from his childhood and had long conversations with his father. It was strange how the word now carried a deeper, truer meaning. Jessica also became an important ally during this time. She revealed that she had ended her relationship with Ethan in the past at Victoria's request, as she feared Blake, who was then obsessed with Jessica, might do something to the young man out of jealousy. She always tried to protect him from a distance, Jessica explained. "Even when it seemed like she was abandoning you, she was looking out for you." After 2 weeks of reflection, Ethan returned to the mansion with a decision. He found Victoria in her office, working late as usual. "I've decided to stay," he announced, "but with a few conditions." Victoria gestured to the chair in front of her, waiting. "First, no more secrets from here on out, full transparency about the past, the present, and future plans." "I agree," Victoria replied without hesitation. "Second, I want to turn part of the company into a foundation, the project you and my mother dreamed of, for underprivileged children, focused on education and healthcare." A genuine smile lit up Victoria's face. "That's exactly what I hoped you'd suggest. Third, Blake needs help, not punishment. He clearly struggles with alcohol and deep resentment. I want us to offer him treatment and a position in the company that values his real skills, not just his last name." Victoria raised her eyebrows, surprised. "That's unexpected, but sensible. Blake has potential. He just took the wrong path. And finally, I want my father, my real father, to be recognized not just as a beneficiary of your charity, but as a respected advisor. He has wisdom money can't buy." "Couldn't agree more," Victoria replied, standing to extend her hand. "Do we have a deal?" Ethan accepted the handshake, feeling he wasn't just closing a professional agreement, but reconciling past and present, paving the way for a different future. In the following months, a remarkable transformation took place at Reynolds Corp. The creation of the Rachel Miller Foundation, dedicated to supporting children and youth from underprivileged communities, drew positive attention from the media and society. Ethan, as the foundation's director, implemented innovative programs combining education, technology, and sustainability. Blake, after initial resistance, accepted professional help for his alcohol problems. To everyone's surprise, he proved to be a talented public relations figure when sober, taking on a key role in promoting the company's new initiatives. Old Frank, strengthened by advanced medical treatment, became a constant presence at foundation meetings, offering valuable perspectives based on his life experience. The cottage on the estate grounds became his second home, though he insisted on keeping his small apartment on the outskirts, so we never forget where we came from. Jessica and Ethan, free from past obstacles, rediscovered their connection. Their relationship, now mature and built on truth and mutual respect, blossomed naturally. Victoria, in turn, seemed lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. For the first time in decades, she allowed herself moments of genuine joy, especially when the foundation opened its first school, named after her old friend. One Sunday afternoon, nearly a year after the revelation that changed everything, the family gathered for lunch in the mansion's garden. An unlikely scene. The gardener's son, the gardener himself, the powerful businesswoman, and her once troubled nephew, all sharing not just a meal, but a renewed purpose. "You know what your mother would say if she saw all of us here?" Old Frank said to Ethan, watching the group with teary eyes. "What, Dad?" "That sometimes we need to lose our way to find it again. That family isn't always about blood, but about love. And that no matter how long it takes, the truth always finds its place." Ethan looked at Victoria, who was chatting excitedly with Jessica about plans to expand the foundation. Noticing his gaze, she smiled, a smile without reservations, without guilt, just genuine gratitude. "I think she would be proud," Ethan replied. "Of all of us." In the pocket watch, recovered from the pawn shop and now displayed under a glass dome in the main room of the mansion, the hands moved steadily, marking not just time, but the unlikely reunion of lives once separated by fate, and now brought together by truth. And so the young man who had worked tirelessly to care for his aging father discovered that the greatest wealth wasn't in the financial empire he now had access to, but in the real bonds of affection, respect, and honesty that had finally formed among them all. The millionaire who had once helped him out of guilt and obligation now valued him for who he truly was, and his father, the simple man who had always stood by his side, finally received the recognition he deserved. And the watch, the silent witness to so many secrets and revelations, continued to mark the time of a family rediscovered, not by blood, but by choice. The end. Dear listener, if this touching journey has moved your heart, share your thoughts in the comments. Would you have made the same choices as Ethan? Subscribe to the channel for more stories that celebrate the true meaning of family and resilience.